inherited world's richest history and culture of highest values. It is the land of birth for many religions and sects, spreading the message of right living and justice. But it is a great paradox now. Corruption has crept into our society, and since last few decades it has reached an epic proportion. India has seen a lot of corruption in the last 64 years since independence. The Transparency International TI India study estimates the monetary value of petty corruption in 11 basic services provided by the government like education, healthcare, judiciary, police, etc. is around 21,000 crore rupees. The daunting face of corruption is black money. It is invariably associated with corruption. India tops the list for black money in the entire world with an estimated figure of about 1.4 trillion US dollars deposited in Swiss banks. It is as if India is a rich country filled with poor people. Why there is a need of anti-corruption movement? Let's now look at the necessity for the need of anti-corruption movement. The Vohra report of 1993 studied the problem of the criminalization of politics and of the nexus among criminals, politicians and bureaucrats in India. It revealed that political leaders had become the leaders of gangs. Over the years, criminals have entered the system from grassroots level to the parliament. In government hospitals, corruption is associated with non-availability of medicines or duplicate or fake medicines. Natural resources are turning up into a source of corrupt business. The hot issue of illegal mining in Karnataka is the worst example. The judiciary is also not spared from the clutches of corruption and is attributable to factors such as delays in the disposal of cases, shortage of judges and complex procedures. The prestigious Indian armed, naval and air forces have frequently witnessed corruption involving many senior officers in allegedly selling defense stores in the black market. The fourth pillar of Constitution, the mass media too, is found to be involved in systemic corruption. Many newspapers are owned by political parties and publish paid news and many times extend unethical support to corrupt. The corruption has also crept into religious institutions. They are known to indulge in collecting huge black money through their educational institutions. Therefore, there is no doubt that corruption has entered moral fabric of Indian society, destroying the very moral foundation of the country, and there is a need to check corruption. How has the anti-corruption movement risen? Let's now look at the rise of anti-corruption movement. There have always been attempts to check the corruption in the country. Lots of legal and institutional framework exist to check corruption and redress citizens' grievances. To make administration more accountable and open to people, the Right to Information Act was introduced in 2005. It has helped civilians and activists uncover graft cases against various politicians and bureaucrats. But even with all these measures, the effectiveness observed is less. The force of the civil society came to the forefront with various scandals in the period 2010-2011, like 2G Spectrum scam, Adarsh Housing Society scam, Commonwealth Games scam. As is well known, they revealed names of various cabinet ministers, chief ministers and members of the armed forces involved. Civil society movement led by Anna Hazare is a mass movement with the support of the media. The movement has given rise to a body, India Against Corruption. It has no political affiliations. Its only aim is to bring about drastic change in the governance system of India so as to tackle corruption effectively. India Against Corruption has made its prime objective to bring about the passing of the Lokpal Bill in Parliament. The other members behind this movement are elderly Supreme Court lawyer Shanti Bhushan, retired IPS officer Kiran Bedi, Justice Yan Santosh Hegde, Advocate Prashant Bhushan, and former Income Tax Service Officer Arvind Kejriwal. What is Jan Lokpal Bill? The Jan Lokpal Bill is a draft anti-corruption law drafted by civil society that would create an ombudsman called the Jan Lokpal. This would be an independent body with the power to prosecute politicians and bureaucrats without prior government permission. Lokpal Bill is not a new feature. For 42 years, the government-drafted Lokpal Bill has failed to pass through the Parliament of India. Finally, with the tremendous pressure of civil society, Lokpal Bill, hopefully, will be introduced in the 2011 winter session of Parliament. Let's now get the glimpse of the key features of Jan Lokpal Bill as proposed by Anna Hazare. To establish a central anti-corruption institution called Lokpal, supported by Lokayukta at the state level. It will cover all public officials, including Prime Minister, to all levels of officers. All levels of officers from Group A to Group D should be covered under Lokpal. The government is not agreeable on the ground that number of employees will be too large to handle for Lokpal. It will be completely independent of the government influence in its investigations. According to this, CBI will not be under the control of central government. The issue is one of the main contentious issues between Anna Hazare and the government. Members appointed will be judges, IAS officers, etc., with a clean record through a transparent and participatory process. It proposes through its website to publish details of all cases dealt in detail in a time-bound manner and regularly. Losses caused to the government by a corrupt individual will be recovered at the time of conviction. Lokpal will impose financial penalties on those responsible for delay and non-delivery of service. This amount subsequently will be given as compensation to the complainant. Complaints against any officer of Lokpal itself will be investigated and completed within a month, and if found to be substantive, will result in the officer being dismissed within 2 months. The existing anti-corruption agencies, CVC, Departmental Vigilance and the Anti-Corruption Branch of the CBI, will be merged into Lokpal with complete independence and authority. Whistleblowers who alert the agency to potential corruption cases will also be provided protection by it. Let's now take a look at the difference between Draft Lokpal Bill 2010 and Jan Lokpal Bill 2011. The Lokpal Bill as proposed by the government and Jan Lokpal Bill as proposed by Anna Hazare created a big debate in the country. Briefly, what I am going to render now are the main differences that are highlighted. Lokpal had no power to initiate suo motu action or receive complaints of corruption from the general public. It was to probe complaints forwarded by the Speaker of the Lok Sabha or the Chairman of the Rajya Sabha. Jan Lokpal will have powers to initiate suo motu action or receive complaints of corruption from the general public. Lokpal was to be an advisory body with a role limited to forwarding reports to a competent authority. Jan Lokpal will be much more than an advisory body and will have the power to initiate prosecution of anyone found guilty. Lokpal had no police powers and no powers to register an FIR or proceed with criminal investigations. Jan Lokpal will have police powers as well as the power to register FIRs. In Lokpal, the CBI remains unconnected and government will have control on CBI. In Jan Lokpal, the anti-corruption wing of the CBI will be one independent body. In Lokpal, punishment for corruption was a minimum of 6 months and a maximum of up to 7 years. In Jan Lokpal, punishments will be a minimum of 5 years and a maximum of up to life imprisonment. In Lokpal Bill, it is disproportionately unfair to the complainant in comparison to the provisions in Jan Lokpal Bill in the matter of punishment and unsubstantiated complaints. In the Lokpal Bill, all employees are not covered, whereas in Jan Lokpal Bill, all employees from Group A to Group D are covered. The Parliament failed to pass the proposed Jan Lokpal Bill or Lokpal Bill. Entire nation watched in disgust the political games all the parties played in the August House of Parliament in December 2011, and even the Lokpal Bill as proposed by government could not be passed. The proposed Lokpal Bill by the government was passed in Lok Sabha but not in Rajya Sabha. The Lokpal Bill was not in the lines of the Jan Lokpal Bill as proposed by Anna Hazare team. The main contentious points remained regarding independence of CBI, jurisdiction of Lokpal over all officials, and also setting up of Lokayuktas in states. Thus, it's clear there is a need for systemic changes. Looking at the societal behavior in India, it must be said that legislation alone cannot prevent corruption and bring about clean governance. But there are systems in our democratic setup that need reforms. They are: elections require huge amount of money, more than what election commission permits. Therefore, large amount of black money is spent. Controlling it is almost impossible. Therefore, elections should be state-funded. Our laws, including civil, criminal and taxation, should be made simple and easy so that common man understands them and becomes law-abiding. All discretionary powers of elected representatives and bureaucrats which offer temptation for money-making should be abolished. The government and semi-government employees should have a market-indexed salaries commensurate with their responsibilities, thus providing them self-sufficiency and self-respect. Reforms in the important systems of the country, namely police and judiciary, should be brought about with proper accountability as well. More importantly, corruption will stop only if each citizen refuses to pay. Therefore, such awareness should start at home, schools and colleges, in the young minds of the country. Such an awareness campaign should be launched by government through the powerful media we have. Well, let's move on to the summary and conclusion. The country has come to a boiling point because the corruption has entered very fabric of the country and is bound to destroy the very existence of democratic setup of this country. There is huge black money outside the country as well as inside. Criminalization of politics is rampant, with criminals entering the legislatures and parliament. The present anti-corruption movement, led by Anna Hazare, is basically proposing to have strong anti-corruption bill. But what is more important is the country should evolve such systems in day-to-day life of our citizens that there is no scope for corruption. An act of corruption is not unilateral. The bribe giver is also as much guilty as bribe receiver. We as citizens are ready to commit breach of law to get undue favors, to get the things done faster, or to get better things or service than others. As famous author and intellectual Guru Charan Das points out, time has come now to introspect the individual moral values in the country. Poverty is no longer a basic issue. We have more or less overcome it. But the corruption is becoming way of life, and that is the most dangerous thing. If a common man thinks and accepts it is all right to give a bribe and take a bribe, the nation at large is destined to be corrupt and ruinous. An act of corruption means exploitation of a helpless person, denial of his rights and benefits guaranteed by Constitution and the government. It is a blatant violation of truthful living. It goes against the national ethos of Satyameva Jayate. Corruption has elements of violence against helpless and needy citizens of the country. It is against principle of ahimsa, Therefore, evil of corruption needs to be uprooted, and time has come now, right now. As Anna Hazare says, the time for second freedom movement has come. All citizens of the country should join this social cause. Jai Hind.